Bitcoin is retesting a major area of short-term resistance at 63,000. A breakout through this level will result in a strong continuation to retest 69,000, the prior bull market's all-time high. Will we see this explosive move play out? Let's go ahead and jump in. Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're all having a fantastic day today. Bitcoin is preparing for a possibly explosive move to retest the prior bull market's all-time high at 69,000. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the key levels that you need to be watching on the short term and the macro charts to capitalize on the next move. Before we do get into it, smash that like button, hit that comment button, and subscribe to the channel. We post daily videos for Bitcoin focusing on the facts, the data, the technical, and the structural information. No hype, no BS, no emotion, pure raw TA. If that is the kind of content you are interested in, join us on Telegram. It is the third link down below. You'll get access to charts, updates, videos, educational posts, news events, and everything you need to stay in the loop of cryptocurrency with Bitcoin and the relevant economic news. If you were interested in trading, join our VIP group. We post trading setups with exact entries, exact targets, exact stop losses, trade justification, and exclusive analysis. Alongside this, you'll also get access to a multitude of group chats, our general chat, our trading chart and education chat, our help, our news, our daily video chat, and everything else that we have to offer. If you're interested in joining that channel, you can contact me in the pinned comment of the free channel by clicking my name or finding out more information via these two links. Let's go ahead guys and dive into the video. So like we said, Bitcoin is preparing for a possibly explosive move to retest the prior bull market's all-time high. In today's video, we're going to be discussing exactly what you need to be paying attention to for this move to actually initiate and for us to see that continuation upwards. We'll also be talking about the macro charts from a technical perspective, discussing how those charts are starting to shape up, and more importantly, also discussing about the risks or the potentials for any sort of pullbacks or corrections on the short-term charts. So starting off the video today on the market data, how are we currently looking? 24-hour volume is up 12%, sitting at a total of 160 billion. 24-hour liquidations are sitting at a total of 283 million. That is relatively high, sitting 45.87% up in the last 24 hours. Of that 283 million in liquidations, we can see 184 million came from long positions and 98 million came from short positions. If we do take a look at those total 24-hour liquidations, we can see only 31 million of the total 283 million came from our Bitcoin positions over here. The majority actually came from altcoins, as we saw quite a large altcoin flush occur about 12 hours ago, resulting in 10 to 20% wiped off for most altcoins, but they have since recovered. We discussed that in the Telegram channel. So relatively large liquidations overall, which I would be considering a flush for altcoins, which is generally healthy to reset open interest and for facilitating continuations in the trend in these aggressively trending markets. Moving over to the DXY, we can see again, we are in this short-term downtrend still. We are still seeing weakness and we still expect a correction down to the 103 range. The fun begins if the DXY drops below 103. That could result in quite a large correction for the DXY, taking us back to retest that yearly low price at around 105. Of course, this will be very, very bullish for the markets if that does occur. Moving over to the broader markets, S&P 500 is still looking relatively good, closing that weekly candle above that 5,100 mark, expecting a continuation toward the upside. Again, you can see just how aggressive this trend has been over the last few months. And again, we don't expect this trend to continue this aggressively without some sort of healthy correction at some point in the future. Now, if we do see a correction, anything that results in a correction while that 5,000 US dollar price is able to hold, would be considered a very healthy correction on the short term. If we start to see that 5,000 price lost on that weekly chart, that is when we kind of expect a higher time frame correction, potentially back down to retest that all-time high. Now, I don't want that to scare you away from the current price action. The current price action is very, very bullish, and we of course are in a overall uptrend. While we do remain above 5,000, we are expecting continuations much, much higher. Moving over to the Dow Jones, again, we can see that weekly candle did manage to close above that $39,000 mark. We are still expecting a move to $40,000. A weekly candle close below that 39,000 could mark this as deviation, and that would result in a correction back to retest that 38K mark. That 38K to 37.7K mark is essentially akin to the $5,000 level on the S&P, and a loss of that level could result in a higher time frame correction to retest the prior all-time high. Remember, even if we do see a move like that in the future, that would be considered a healthy correction before a macro continuation upwards. We are technically still in a macro uptrend whilst we remain above this diagonal uptrending trend line. Keep that one in mind, guys. Overall, looking relatively bullish. So let's go ahead and quickly discuss what we're going to be talking about in today's video, and then we'll get into it. So like we said, we're going to be discussing the short-term time frame, going over the key structural levels you should be paying attention to, what is happening with our momentum, where is our current resistances and supports, how could a correction develop from here, and what would we expect if we broke through our current $63,000 resistance. We're going to be moving over to the daily, weekly, and monthly chart, discussing the possible monthly candle close incoming above our prior monthly closing price of the largest, again, closing price we saw in Bitcoin's history. We can see we are actually pushing up on the monthly chart. We'll also be discussing what this means from a weekly perspective, and could we see a continuation to that all-time high. And finally, we're finishing up on the monthly charts, discussing what the charts are suggesting from a technical perspective. So let's go ahead and dive in. Before we do, a quick word from Bitget and BingX. I wanted to briefly interrupt today's video to discuss the two exchanges we use on this channel, Bitget and BingX. So which exchange should you sign up to? If you look to the right hand side of the screen, you're going to see the list of differences in relation to KYC requirements and the countries these exchanges offer services to. The first link down below being the Bitget link, and the second link down below being the BingX link. No matter which link you sign up to, you're going to get up to 15% discounts on your trading fees, up to $5,000 in trading rewards, and of course, you'll get access to every single MegaWhale exclusive bonus campaign we run on these exchanges. Alongside that, Bitget and BingX are incredibly similar. They are both ranked top 10 in terms of trading volume. They both have extensive liquidity pools and market pairs offering up to 125x leverage. And most importantly, they both offer protection funds for their users to protect you against any third-party hacks. So get started now and support the channel by clicking the links below. Thanks for listening. Okay guys, let's jump into it. And like we said, the crux of today's video is really honing in and focusing on the next potential move for Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin going to see a large move to retest the prior bull market's all-time high? Is that going to happen relatively soon, or are the bulls losing strength? So let's go ahead and jump into that question, answer it, and check it off the list. So at the moment, guys, if you've been paying attention to the channel, you would know we discussed what happened yesterday, and we talked about two things. We talked about this downtrending diagonal resistance. We talked about our downtrending diagonal resistance on the price action chart. And thirdly, we talked about our trigger point at 63,000, this level of neckline resistance. In the last 24 hours, we have seen two of the 3 points of validation check off. We saw a breakout on the RSI. We saw the breakout on the RSI, which resulted again in the price action following through. And you can see this vertical line showing us exactly when the RSI broke out. And you can see the price action had yet to break out of this downtrending diagonal resistance, even though the RSI did. And this is a prime example of how momentum is a leading a leading bit of information that can basically show you where the price action is likely to move to next, as it does attribute or take in consideration the shifting strength behind buyers and sellers at any particular time. If we see a significant surge in buying strength, the price action is likely to follow suit at a later period. So in this instance, we saw the momentum flip positive. That was the trigger for a retest and breakout of this diagonal trend line, and as we said in yesterday's video, a break of this diagonal trend line would result in a retest of 63,000. Now, when we look for breakout validations, I like to look for 3 points: structure, trend, and strength. I derive strength from momentum. We have a check, we have a tick on that one, we have positive momentum. Obviously, we have trend, which is reflected by our overall trend of price action. We are broken out of the downtrend, we have a tick. And thirdly, we have structure, our horizontal levels of resistance and support, which is derived from our liquidity levels based on our visible range volume profile. We can see from a structural perspective, the VIPV significantly drops off above 63,000. So we know that 63,000 is an area of, again, a trigger point, but of course an area of resistance based on our prior retests of this range. So for us to see a continuation upwards, we do need to see a break of 63,000. However, these 2 points, the trend and the strength, add to the probability that we're going to see that break upwards. This is what trading is all about. It's about building a narrative, building a story based on data, okay? And each bit of data that you formulate, you understand, you apply, has a degree of probability attached to it, and the more you have attached to your position, again, the greater probability of success you have. So you're trying to build up your probabilities to a higher probability of success before you actually enter that position. So with these 2 things, with positive strength, okay, and now a positive trend, we have 2 out of the 3 factors we need to validate this breakout and tell and say we are expecting a continuation upwards. So overall, we do expect that continuation through 63,000. So let's talk about what we would expect. If we quickly zoom out to this chart over here, we have been talking about this for a very long time. In fact, if you remember back to, I think it was mid-February when we were retesting 52K, we told you guys that a break over 52,000, 53,000 specifically, we are very likely to see exactly what we saw over here. The prior time we broke above that 53,000, we saw a large move to retest or create that new all-time high. And I told you guys, and we're seeing that now, that we saw a break over 53,000. We are still expecting a retest of that all-time high. And you can see just how quickly that price action has actually moved up into that range. I'd like to further point out, if we do look at the VIPV on the right-hand side, I know it's kind of hard to see, maybe you have to zoom in a little bit. We can see the VIPV significantly is dropping off to that 68, 69K range, which is going to be a major area of liquidity and a potential area of resistance for Bitcoin. So looking at the short-term chart, we can say that again, with the information we have on the short term, which again is going to be a breakout of this current structure, okay? And with the information we have on the higher time frame, which is a breakout of that current structure, would result in into a move into this lower historical resistance range. It is likely we can say that a break over 63,000 could potentially take us as high as that $68,000 to $69,000 level. Again, if we do look at the technicals, what did we have? We had falling price action, falling momentum. However, when we had that falling momentum, we were creating, what were we creating, guys? We were creating these higher lows. Do you see how we had a low over here? We had a higher low, okay? A higher low. This is indicative of absorption. This is bullish absorption. This is telling us that these sellers from this range, the selling pressure has been exhausting because we have got buyers stepping in sooner and sooner with more strength. This is indicative of a reversal developing. So we are expecting a continuation through this resistance. If that $63,000 breaks, we expect a continuation higher. Now, there is a chance Bitcoin could exhaust prior to that prior all-time high. We are looking at those whole numbers, 64,000, 65,000, 66,000, etc., etc. Watch those levels. So let's now talk about the possibility of a downward move. Now, like I said on Telegram, and like I've been saying in the videos, for a downward move to develop and actually trigger, we don't just need to see exhaustion, we actually need to see structural formations break, and we need to see actual weakness present on the chart. And that would be derived from, again, these higher lows being lost. So specifically, I would want to see, again, on the short term, the higher lows lost. So initially, this level over here, 61,600, okay? Well, this level over here, 60,800, and most importantly, our structural low, which is going to be 60,000. A loss of 60,000 would be enough to validate a correction as low as 57,000. Why 57,000? That is a prior cluster of consolidation. Okay, that's that ascending triangle formation we had over here. And of course, if we look at the VIPV, we can see a massive gap on the VIPV, sub 60K to that $57,000 range. Again, the likelihood of this playing out is quite low, considering now we have those two validations and we are potentially breaking through 63,000. However, if we see something like this, right, a breakout, oh my bad, a breakout, let's just take that, a breakout, and we crash back below, then these scenarios will become back in play. Then we're looking at these levels breaking down for a correction lower. So regardless of what happens going forward, the correction scenario is not likely, okay? And this is what it's all about. It is not likely until we start losing these higher lows, okay? That would indicate a shift from strength to weakness, and if we have weakness developing after, again, these deviations, that would trigger or would increase the probabilities of a correction on the higher time frame. Now, if we do see a correction on the higher time frame, again, like I said already, we could theoretically go as low as 46 to 48K while still being macro bullish. Even if we saw a massive wick tomorrow, taking us all the way back down to this range, that would be a perfect opportunity to re-enter. And that, guess what? We would still be macro bullish, as the 48K level is the key level of macro support on the high time frame chart. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Technically, what we have seen before, every single time we break above the dotted trend line, if we go to the all-time high of the prior cycles, right? The all-time high of the prior cycles, and we go all the way down to our first base of support, okay? That is going to be our yearly level of resistance. The dead cat bounce high, so the highest point reached after retesting that base of support is going to be our dotted trend line. Historically, when we break a monthly candle close above the dotted trend line, which is 48,000, we enter an official bull run, and I've explained that on the chart many, many times. But there's another thing. Not only do we enter an official bull run, we never, ever, ever have seen a monthly candle close back below that respective dotted trend line. And thus, if we do see a monthly candle close at any point back below 48 to 46K, that would be cycle breaking. That would be catastrophic for Bitcoin. And that would, in my opinion, be a massive, massive a bearish sign. So of course, while we see that correction, if we do see that correction, it will be still considered healthy. Do I think it's going to happen? I really don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Bitcoin's going to touch 48K again. But if it randomly somehow does, it would still be considered a healthy correction. So we can correct as low as that point and still remain healthy. What does that mean? It means any correction which results in a move above 48,000, whether we come down to 52, whether we come down to 60, whether we come down to 57, whatever it's going to be, whenever it's going to be, should still be considered healthy while 48,000 remains intact. I think we're going to wrap up the video here, guys. I'll keep it nice and short today. Overall, we are really paying attention to that short-term chart. We can see we are breaking through this level right now. This short-term trigger point, again, is going to be a massive trigger point for continuation upwards. And like we always say, what happens on the short term and develops on the short term eventually translates to the macro chart. So when you want to watch for continuations, when you want to watch for reversals, you have to pay attention to what is actually happening on the short term. What is happening with the buyers and sellers today? How is the strength developing? Are we going to see continuations? Are we exhausting? Because whatever occurs, that strength developing or that exhaustion developing, if it develops for long enough, it will eventually translate to the higher time frames, and then it would show up on the higher time frames. So if you're watching the high time frame charts for continuations, for reversals, you are generally going to be late. You need to hone in, you need to be more specific, you need to zoom into what is actually happening behind the scenes, what is happening right now, what is happening today. Okay guys, thank you for watching. Have a fantastic day. Bitcoin's looking fantastic. Of course, we are expecting a move upwards, and I'll see you guys in the next one tomorrow. We'll jump into the macro charts tomorrow, discussing the macro from a technical and a structural perspective, going over everything we didn't quite get into today. So thank you, and I'll see you then. Cheers.